And our next panel then is effectiveness of the state's oil spill prevention, response, and preparedness program. David Botelho, who's the chief of the Office of State Audits and Evaluations, to talk about the audit. Mr. Cullen and Ms. Casey, you're stuck here for a little bit more. Please indulge us. Janelle Meyer, the Regional Program Manager of the Bay Area Urban Area Security Initiative. And then Dr. Judima, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, hopefully, Professor, University of California, Davis. Welcome. And we'll start with state audits and evaluations. Mr. Botelho.
Good morning, committee chairpersons. My name is David Botelho. I'm with the Department of Finance, the Office of State Audits and Evaluations, and I want to thank you for having us here to give an overview of our audit report. We performed an audit of the oil spill prevention and response and preparedness program for the period of July 1st, 2011 through June 30, 2012, including and have included our findings and recommendations in a report dated December 31st, 2012. In looking at this report, we conducted this performance audit in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards, and This audit was performed under Government Code section, which required us to include an analysis of major expenditures, fees, and fines collected, staffing and equipment levels, spills responded to, and other relevant issues. The code also required that we provide recommendations to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the program, including measures to modify existing contingency plan requirements, improve protection of sensitive shoreline sites, and ensure adequate and equitable funding for the state's oil spill prevention, response, and preparedness program. To determine the program's financial basis and programmatic effectiveness, we reviewed applicable laws and regulations. We interviewed key personnel at the Department of Fish and Wildlife and Lands Commission to gain an understanding of their programs. We reviewed accounting records to determine total revenues and expenditures. We compiled and analyzed data pertaining to expenditures, revenue, staffing, equipment, as well as spills responded to. We attended a sample of drills conducted by the Department of Fish and Wildlife's Office of Spill Prevention, by OSPR, to understand the actual preparedness activities. We attended tours and meetings conducted by the Commission, and we surveyed program staff to identify opportunities for improvement, areas of success, and workload analysis. In order to recommend measures to improve efficiency and effectiveness, we also reviewed the existing contingency plan requirements, determined current processes for protection of sensitive shoreline sites, reviewed revenues collected, obtained and analyzed the 2011-12 fiscal year appropriations. We reviewed and analyzed spill data obtained from the spill tracking database to determine the effectiveness of the activities, and we reviewed training courses recommended and taken to determine the adequacy of training for the program staff. We also reviewed the program's prior audit findings by our organization and other organizations to determine if appropriate corrective actions had been taken. Based on our review of the financial basis and programmatic effectiveness of OSPR, we determined that the program's overall financial basis was sound as of June 30, 2012, recognizing that an existing fee increase is set to sunset in 2015. Overall, we found the program to be effective, with the exception of two components, the inland spill response and the Oiled Wildlife Care Network programs, which have been discussed previously. We also identified several areas of risk and recommended measures to improve the program's efficiency and/or effectiveness. We also recognize and acknowledge in our report that significant improvements have been made to the existing contingency plan requirements and protection of the sensitive shoreline sites since our last report dated January 1st of 2005. We did not identify any new measures to modify existing contingency plan requirements or improvements for the protection of sensitive shoreline sites. As has been provided in earlier discussion, the program expenditures is primarily funded by the Oil Spill Prevention and Administration Fund, the OSPAF. This fund is used for all costs related to preventing and preparing for marine oil spills. Because the fund is the program's major funding source for the 2011-12 year, our review primarily focused on these expenditures. Our review did not identify any concerns regarding program expenditures for oil spill prevention activities. This fund primarily funds its activities, as mentioned earlier, from per-barrel fees based on movement of crude oil shipped into California via either marine terminal or pipeline, fees collected from non-tank vessels from the Certificate of Financial Responsibilities, certificates, those fees, the interest earned through the State Surplus Money Investment Fund, and cost recovery for pollution and cleanup. And the majority of the fees are collected on the per-barrel fees is through the Board of Equalization. Based on our analysis of the fund, we reviewed the fee increase and determined it is reasonable and sufficient from the 5 cents per barrel to the existing 6.5 cents per barrel to carry out its oil spill prevention activities as of that point in time. Although not specifically stated, it is implied that the existing fee increase continues to be necessary. The fund reported excess revenues in 2011-12 of $2.7 million, which was due in part to the January 1st, 2012 increase. The OSPAF, for the administration fund, accounted for 77% of the total program appropriations. The remaining appropriations are from other funds, including the General Fund, the Preservation Fund, Trust Fund, Environmental Enhancement Fund, California Sea Otter Fund, and Federal Trust Fund. In looking at one of the points we looked at was staffing levels. Our review did not identify any issues or concerns regarding staffing levels at the Commission. We did identify a possible staffing issue at the Office of Spill Prevention and Response. As was discussed earlier, staffing levels, the number of positions filled approximately 250. There were some hiring freezes in effect as a result of the administration in that time period. In July of 2011, they were able to begin filling their positions once the hiring freeze was no longer in effect. We identified a potential duplication of effort with administrative functions. A potential duplication exists between the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the OSPR administrative functions. This resulted from performing staff interviews and staff survey, and it was brought to our attention that there is a large administrative team and a lack of sufficient work to keep them busy. Our recommendation was that program management should review the necessity of having a separate administrative staff for both and look for opportunities to reduce redundancies in administrative functions. We also looked at equipment levels and the inventory of equipment. This has been an ongoing issue for the program. Several audits of inventory records have noted a lack of appropriate record keeping and oversight of fixed assets. The 1999 fixed asset internal audit report stated that Fish and Wildlife had not completed a property inventory since 1995. While a physical count of inventory has since then been completed, it has not been reconciled to the general ledger. We've recommended that program management reconcile fixed asset inventory records and develop procedures to ensure adequate record keeping and oversight of fixed assets. With respect to spills responded to, the program's response rate for marine and inland oil spills was 98% and 95% for the period tested. We did identify there were some inaccuracies. This data came from the oil spill tracking database, and we did identify some inaccuracies in that database as it did not always reflect the most current and accurate information at the point that the spill occurred. The environment may have changed, and specifically the estimated volume of oil may change during the course of the recovery process. So we recommended that the program should improve its process to ensure the volume of oil spilled and volume of oil recovered during the recovery and cleanup process is completely and accurately input into this oil spill tracking database. We also identified an opportunity for increased oversight by the Commission. The Commission is effectively and efficiently administering spill prevention programs through a variety of monitoring tools and activities. However, opportunities exist to strengthen oversight by requiring process safety management reviews. The Commission currently assists operators with safety assessments through a question and answer process referred to as the safety assessment of management systems. A more robust process safety management review should take the operating process, the hardware, and the human element interactions into consideration to better identify risks that could lead to spills. Again, we recommended management include requirements in their operations manual to implement process safety management reviews and ensure the reviews are performed. As discussed earlier, the Commission is not performing timely reviews. The operators of the marine oil terminals are required to conduct comprehensive engineering audits of their facilities to provide terminal operators with information about the current condition and upgrades needed to their infrastructure. Each terminal was rated either as high, medium, or low-risk terminal based on the risk of oil spill. The Marine Facilities Division used the risk rating to determine when the 31 marine oil terminals audits needed to be submitted to the division for review. However, they have not completed the reviews in a timely manner. Currently, the high-risk terminals are being reviewed. The Commission expressed a concern of a lack of staff with the technical skills necessary to perform such reviews. Failure to perform these reviews may increase the risk of spills occurring. We recommend the reviews of the marine oil terminal audits should be conducted on a timely basis. With respect to the issue of the inland spill response program, it lacks funding and preventative activities. The program's inland spill response program lacks a dedicated funding source, as has been stated, and preparedness and prevention activities to allow the program to efficiently and effectively clean up inland spills. In September of 2012, the Fish and Wildlife Pollution Account, which funded the Inland Spill Response Program, had a negative balance of approximately $27,000. We recommend the program should explore feasible options to obtain a dedicated funding source for the prevention, preparedness, response, and cleanup of these inland spills, and develop formalized prevention and preparedness activities for the Inland Response Program. This may require amending existing or creating new legislation. We also identified that the training policy has not been fully implemented. The program is developing training standards, tracking tools, and assessing training needs of the staff. The training standards include training courses for each staff classification. Although these courses are not mandatory, they are recommended to enhance program effectiveness. While there is no formal policy currently in place that requires staff enroll and complete these training classes within a specific time, it is recommended that staff receive the necessary training, as they may not be well prepared to respond to the next major oil spill in marine waters. We recommend the program should issue a written policy to make training classes, those that are required to be mandatory, make them mandatory within the specific time frames to ensure program staff are meeting training objectives and have the skills to perform their jobs effectively. We also identified that communication between the organizations needs to be improved. Communication continues to be an issue between OSPR staff and Fish and Wildlife Headquarters, as noted in previous audit reports. Commission staff stated that the level of communication between them and OSPR staff has been unsatisfactory at times, and that the deficiency in communication was observed during a site visit by our audit staff. We recommend the program staff should work on strengthening the communication within their respective agencies and with each other to maximize the program's efficiencies and effectiveness. The Oiled Wildlife Care Network lacks funding, as also previously discussed. The program will be unable to fund the Oiled Wildlife Care Network beginning in fiscal year 2014-15. Costs are funded from the interest earned from the Oil Spill Trust Fund. And as stated earlier, also that a loan has been made to the general fund from this fund and is expected to be paid later this year in the 13-14 fiscal year. We recommend the program should explore feasible options to obtain a dedicated funding source for this program. Again, this may require amending legislation. We also identified a lack of method to determine efficiency in the prevention and response activities. The program does not have methods and metrics in place to measure and determine whether the prevention and response activities are efficient. While developing and implementing methods and metrics to make such measurements can be complex, having a framework to measure will allow the program to determine how efficiently it is using its resources to carry out these activities. This would also provide an accurate measure of the effectiveness of the prevention and response process and enhance the program's efforts in meeting its mission. We recommend the program should develop and document a feasible and reasonable framework and methodology to measure and determine whether the prevention and response activities are efficient. Our last finding was related to a possible conflict of responsibility and authority. In 1990, the California legislature enacted the Lempert-Keene-Seastrand Oil Spill Prevention and Response Act, which divided the prevention responsibilities between OSPR and the Commission. Because of this separation of responsibilities, it gives the appearance of duplication of roles and staffing. Now that the program, is mature, we believe it would be beneficial to have an independent evaluation to determine if the current organizational structure and division of responsibilities are the most effective and efficient way to meet the program's mission. A conflict appears to exist between the administrator and the Director of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Fish and Wildlife Director roles. The Act gives the administrator authority to direct program employees and administer the program's funds in accordance with state law. However, in 2002, the legislature amended provisions of the law, giving the Department of Fish and Wildlife Director authority over all employees, including OSPR staff. This conflict has created numerous issues, and it appears Department of Fish and Wildlife has interpreted and applied the 2002 amendment in a way that has impaired the administrator's authority to fully implement the Act. This issue is also identified by the California State Auditor in its report issued in August of 2012. We recommend the program should commission an independent study to determine the most effective and efficient organizational structure and division of roles that best meets the program's mission. That concludes an overview of the report, and if the committee has any questions, we'd be glad to answer those or as part of the panel.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Botelho. Are there questions from Ms. Grove?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that the fund is, the Oilfield Wildlife Fund is funded by interest from the money from the OSPR Fund, correct?
From the, it's where the general fund loan was taken from the total of the $55 million, the $40 million loan. It's the Oil Spill Trust Fund.
Okay, so I guess my question is that the administration is supposed to be paying back this $40 million. Is the administration also going to pay back the money that was lost on the interest that would have been earned to fund this program?
My understanding that it is being the general fund loan and interest is being returned to the fund. However, stated earlier, the interest being earned is not a material amount of money, given the low interest rates that exist.
Okay. I was just curious about the difference in what would be funding the fund now with the interest rates being applied or the earned interest being applied. And you said it's not significant.
Again, I think I don't know the exact interest rate, but it's less than 1%.
Okay.
So it's not a significant amount of money.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions? Ms. Atkins.
Thank you. Just quickly, is there a regular cycle of auditing the oil spill response agencies, or is it by request?
The Government Code section required that this particular audit be completed and issued to the legislature by January 1st of 2013, and to be performed not less than once every 4 years thereafter.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.